Okay, today is July 8th, 2023, and we have several very special guests on the show today. Dequi Kioni-Sadiki, Frank Brown, Kalonji Jama Changa, and we're also supposed to be joined by Haki Kweli Shakur. Dequi Kioni-Sadiki is a Black feminist, educator for liberation, poet, artist, public speaker, and human rights activist. She is former chair of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, leader of the Sekou Odinga Defense Committee, which waged a successful campaign for the release of her husband, a veteran member of the Black Panther Collective, who has organized with the Jericho Movement for Amnesty and recognition of U.S. political prisoners and prisoners of war, the New York City Free Mumia Abu-Jamal Coalition, and the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition. Dequi is also co-editor of Look for Me in the Whirlwind, from the New York Panther 21 to 21st Century Revolutions, published in 2017 by PM Press, with articles and essays published in the Journal for Socialism and Democracy, Amsterdam News, Huffington Post, Black Power Alternatives, The Enduring Significance of the Black Panther Party, Climate Care, Crisis, and Debt, Transdisciplinary Problems and Possibilities, and has appeared in interviews for Conversations, The Black Radical Tradition, All Politics is Local, I Mix What I Like. Dequi is also a former producer and co-host of the weekly show Where We Live on WBAI-Radio Pacifica. Dequi is now in retirement from the New York City Department of Education. Sorry, I keep coughing, everybody. We're also joined by Frank Brown. Frank is an activist, organizer, and revolutionary. Frank Brown is member of the Human Rights Formation, the December 12th Movement. Frank is also a member of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, NEPPC, which is focused on the release of US-held political prisoners. Frank is also one of the hosts of NEPPC podcast on YouTube channel, which is a must-watch and must-subscribe. And we're also joined by Kalonji Jama Changa. Kalonji is an organizer, author, filmmaker. Kalonji is the founder of the FTP movement. Kalonji is also the author of How to Build a People's Army and co-producer of the documentary Organizing is the New Cool. Kalonji also serves as co-chair of the Urban Survival and Preparedness Institute. Kalonji is also co-founder of Black Power Media and the host of the show Riot Starter TV on Black Power Media. Riot Starter TV is a must-watch and must-subscribe YouTube channel. Thank you, Dequi, Frank, Kalonji, for coming on the show, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for having us.
It's a true honor having you all here. And before we get into the questions, I wanted to share the sad news that on July 6, 2023, Dr. Mutulu Shakur made his transition. Dr. Mutulu Shakur is someone that I deeply admire for his profound love and dedication as a freedom fighter, revolutionary, healer, and much, much more. In our conversation today, we will be discussing political prisoners and prisoners of war. And Dr. Mutulu Shakur is someone that spent over 33 years behind the wall, and in fact was just recently got home this past December. Before we get into questions, no pressure whatsoever, but does anyone want to share their thoughts or say anything regarding Dr. Mutulu Shakur?
Yes, I would like to say that, I had the pleasure of writing him years ago, and he did write back. So I felt good and inspired by him writing me back. I was able to get involved with some work that was about fundraising for him. And I was able to build a relationship with his son, Talib Shakur. And, I sent them condolences on the text. Those experiences, and just to know that he was had a strong relationship with Sekou Odinga, a strong relationship with Coltrane Shimaranga, one of the founders of the December 12th movement. I always felt that connection in another way, because they embodied that spirit of resistance. So, you know, his work was being felt different ways. Sometimes you're not in an exact place where you would like to be, but there's others that show so much respect and camaraderie for you that they're carrying out your work. One thing that he said that I will continue to hold on and carry strong is love is something that you do, not say. And I think that's very important, because people use that word just loosely, right? But he was dealing with it concretely. So I think in its spirit, we got to continue to fight strong and harder to advance our people.
Okay.
I'll wait. I can't get the words up.
Yeah, no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, for me, I feel I feel where Dequi is coming from, right? I look at Dr. Mutulu Shakur really as like I do all my comrades who I consider my heroes. You know what I'm saying? This is a brother who gave and kept giving. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, for me, it's like a surreal moment. We already knew that he was, you know, he was ill and everything. But for me, it just, there's a fire inside of me right now. You know what I'm saying? And that fire is rage, because I feel like, once again, the state has assassinated one of our people. You know what I'm saying? And we must be clear about that. Dr. Mutulu Shakur, the beautiful thing is he didn't die behind enemy lines. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was on his terms. But we, in the words of George Jackson, we will never let up, and we will never forget, and we'll never forgive, because this was murder. You understand what I'm saying? And you know, I'm gonna leave it at that, so I won't, you know, go too off tip.
Yeah, and I also want to note for the audience that yesterday evening, Kalonji did at least one show, if not two shows, dedicated to Dr. Mutulu Shakur, one of which included Dhoruba Ben Wahad. So please go to Black Power Media and check that out if you haven't. Like everything Kalonji does, it is a must-watch show. It's very powerful, so I do strongly recommend it. Moving on to the first question, and as I noted today, we wanted to talk to you all about the importance and need to fight to free all political prisoners. And I wanted to direct the first question to Frank. Frank, last time you were on the show, we talked about Reverend Joy Powell. And today I wanted to highlight and bring to the audience's attention Joseph Jojo Bowen. Who is Joseph Jojo Bowen?
Yes, just to start off with the first part you said about Joy Powell. She had called me and had about 60 seconds to talk to me. So it was a real fast conversation, and she was just giving words of unity and solidarity around the fight to advance our people. Well, Jojo Bowen, he is a prisoner of consciousness. He is a Black Liberation Army prisoner of war. Jojo Bowen became conscious while he was incarcerated. He's currently serving 2 life sentences for actions carried out against a prison warden and deputy warden. They was involved in a standoff for that. Took some time for them to be dealt with. But I think that when you talk about Jojo Bowen, you're talking about a person who became conscious when he was incarcerated, and he is reminiscent or similar to George Jackson, because they were incarcerated and they used their incarceration in a way to become further politicized rather. And one of the things that he said was that I ain't no angel, I'll do my time. All we want is to be recognized as what we are, human beings. And another quote he said was that I used to teach the brothers how to turn their rage into energy and how to understand their situation. And I think that these two quotations let you understand that this transition that he made to become a revolutionary, he was able to carry it on to others who are incarcerated and let them know that we have to examine our situation and we have to do what needs to be done rather while we're incarcerated so that we could continue to politicize others. And in fact, they when I did research on him, they said that he has political and military classes where he's raising the consciousness of many inmates.
Thank you for sharing that, Frank. Is there anything, Dequi or Kalonji, you all want to say about Joseph Jojo Bowen or political prisoners in general?
I think that what Frank shared about Jojo is really key about what can happen, and that is really true of all, lots of revolutionaries, particularly when we talk about our political prisoners, those members of the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, like they were people from the streets and they became politicized. So I think the importance of what Frank said is like, it cannot be understated, the importance of getting to people and helping people to understand the system that they live under and that we are not each other's enemies, although we're taught that we are each other's enemy, like brother against brother, like you're supposed to look at people who look like you with a sneer and distrust, when it's really the system that we need to be distrustful of. So once you know better, you do better. So when people become politicized, that's when their behaviors change because their minds change. And that's really the work of turning our communities and our movement around, getting people to understand, getting people to be politicized. That's the work that the state doesn't want. That's why they keep our political prisoners inside. Now, they're still politicizing people on the inside, but it's more contained. They don't want them on the outside to do far more far-reaching work because they understand that these political prisoners, these freedom fighters, they understand what they're up against, and they're working to help other people, especially young people, understand.
Thank you, Dequi. And I just want to quickly interrupt. Welcome to the show, Haki, Kweli, Shakur. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you're having a good morning.
Free the line, free the line.
Free the line.
For Haki, for your benefit, we're talking about Joseph Jojo Bowen and the need to free all political prisoners. Does anyone else want to say something to this question before we move on to the next question?
Oh, yes, I would like to add on to what I said. I just want to provide Jojo's address because I think it's very important when we talk about our political prisoners, we make sure that we build that relationship, because that's one of the things that I did in Queensbridge public housings. I had a workshop and a number of people wrote to Veronda Bowers. So Joseph Bowen's address is, his number is AM-4272 1 Kelly Drive, Cole Township, Pennsylvania 178661021. Again, that's Joseph Bowen. His inmate number is AM-4272. That's 1 Kelly Drive, Cole Township, PA 17866-1021. So one of the things that I did prior to coming on is make sure I sent out that letter so he could give us some feedback, and then when we come back on any platform where we talk about political prisoners, we have direct words from him so that they're engaged with what's being discussed.
Yeah, and I'll put the address in the description to this video so that the audience can more easily access it. And as Dequi message, I'll also put the website link for the Jericho Movement in there. It has several of our political prisoners' addresses and contact information in there. And anybody else want to discuss this question before we move on to the next?
I think they did a great job as far as handling the business.
Okay, I wanted to start off the next question with Dequi. We often hear our friends on the left talk about Assata taught me, but don't mention any of her comrades that remain behind the wall or are in exile. Fortunately, Sundiata Kweli is now finally home. But what is your reaction when our friends on the left claim, quote, Assata taught me, but are silent about her comrades who remain behind the wall and are in exile?
It makes me want to holler, right? On the one hand, it's wonderful to lift her name up, right? She is symbolic, right? Like Harriet Tubman is symbolic, but it lacks, so much of it lacks. It's the superficial, right? It's the we can say Assata's name, but we're not really supporting the work that Assata was involved in. The movement. Assata doesn't stand by herself, and I say this to young people all the time. This ain't no shade, because I love Assata, right? But I understand that Assata is a part of a movement, and she would not want to be singled out of the movement where there were people up until very recently that were still in prison for her liberation, right? She came from a movement, and like it lacks, when they just do that, it lacks the historical context, right? You can't say Assata's name and not say the people who were in the car with her, right? One was dead. Zaid Shakur was murdered. Sundiata was shot. He was captured like a day or two later, but he'd been in prison for 49 years for that, right? Marilyn Buck, Mutulu, Sekou, all of these people, right? She's a part of a movement, and I always felt that it was disingenuous, that it was opportunistic, that it was revisionist. Because we can say that, but then how are you including the work of her comrades? How are you talking about Sadiki, who is the father of her daughter, who's in prison simply because he refused to turn her in? That's the only reason why Kamal is a political prisoner, because he did time back in the 70s and he came home and he was out living his life and working for Verizon. They called him the telephone man, and the FBI came to him with an offer to help, to ask him to demand that he assist them in capturing her by luring her someplace where they could get her. And he said no. And they told him, if you don't help us, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. We'll give you the reward that they were offering at that time, but he's been in prison since 2002. So it wasn't a $2 million reward in 2002. And he said no. And so now he's doing 2 life sentences in an Augusta, Georgia medical facility. So when people say that, they take those 3 lines out of a poem, but they don't include the work of her comrades or her contributions to the Black freedom struggle and the people who paved the way for all of us. To me, that's just opportunism and revisionism and an ahistorical analysis. So it does make me want to holler.
Yeah, I would definitely like to add on to that. First off, y'all didn't know, Dequi and I was separated at birth. We were twins, right? So I'm glad my twin sister's here today. You know, because she can, you know, she has a way of kicking the door open, and then we can let the floodgates, you know, we can run in, right? So here it is. I agree with everything she says times 10. I think it is criminal. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these folks indeed are opportunists. I think there are certain elements in the academy. There's certain elements in certain organizations that capitalize certain feminists. You know what I'm saying? Certain people from the LGBT community. I'm just gonna say it. You know, it's not. You know, we cannot be afraid to speak truth to power. Right? This is not an attack on any particular individual, but it's an attack on everyone who has the audacity to stand up and swim, bathe in the blood of our political prisoners and our exile. You know what I'm saying? These are oftentimes grave robbers. I feel the same way when I hear someone talking about Assata taught me. I feel the same way as when they talk about Angela Davis and they don't mention Rochelle McGee, who's been locked up for over 60 years. I think it's a criminal act. I don't care about Angela Davis talking about cop city, because America's a cop city. America's a police state. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not impressed by folks talking about she wrote a letter or she started talking about such and such or gave a shout out and all of that. I know that there are folks that certain cronies up under her who are making attempts and efforts to hijack a movement. You understand what I'm saying? This is a liberation movement. This is not a black radical movement. This is a movement about revolution. This is about freedom fighting. You know what I'm saying? It's not about scholarships. It's not about grants. And I think that we need to confront these people every chance we get. Every chance we get. And if you're talking about a side that taught you, then you have to talk about like Dequi said, some of these other some of our other comrades. And for me, I often say, and you know, folks like Deruba taught me, folks like Sekou taught me, folks like OG Shaka Thinnen taught me, folks like Mutulu taught me. You understand what I'm saying? And Asada taught me. You understand what I'm saying? But it ain't no, we're not singling out no particular person because they're a woman or because they're gay or they're straight or they, you know, they black or they whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that it's criminal.
Thank you for that, Kalonji.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to comment on this Sada Taught Me conversation? All right, we'll move on to the next question. The next question, you know, Kalonji, you stay on the hot seat. As we know, there are conversations and even legislation in different areas across the country regarding reparations. And how and why should freeing our political prisoners be centered in any movement for reparations?
I would say we make it plain, make it simple, right? You know, even quote unquote street organizations, right? I wouldn't imagine, you know, let's say that Haki and I was opposing forces. I can imagine I take his brother, I take his father, his daughters, you know what I'm saying? Or better yet, rewind. I took his grandparents, his great grandparents, you know what I'm saying, and their mothers and fathers and so on and so forth. And all he's gonna say to me when we're in the same vicinity or when we interact or when we confront each other, it's like, look, man, you just need to give me some money, man. You know what I'm saying? I know you stole my grandmother. I know you raped my great great grandmother, so on and so forth, you know, and beat them up, man. You know what the check look like. I think that is insane. I mean, it is the most ludicrous thought. And this is what we're doing right now. Folks are like, you know, they don't look at the political prisoners as comrades who've been captured in war. You understand what I'm saying? So if the release of political prisoners is not at the forefront of reparations, then ain't no damn reparations. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I dare to say anybody to get a check without our political prisoners being released is guilty of ancestral treason, and they should be brought up on charges. You know what I'm saying? So any of these goofy folks that's walking around here talking about a check, they're out of their damn mind. I respect the whole issue of land because, of course, you know, as Malcolm talked about, land is the basis of power. We're clear on that. But at the same time, like I said, if we're not, if Haki can't get his grandparents and everybody back first, I don't think Haki gonna be down to talk to me about no beer summit in DC or, you know what I'm saying, or we going to the casino or whatever the case is. That's just how I see it.
You know, I think something I heard you once say, Kalonji, and I don't want to misquote you, but you said something to the effect that a down payment, you know, releasing our political prisoners should be a down payment before we even get to the table to talk about reparations. You know, and if you look at other countries, you know, look at what happened in South Africa. They released the political prisoners before, you know, they went to truth and reconciliation. You know, and they, you know, that should be step number one. But you were about to say something. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's facts. I mean, you know, really, to be honest with you, they wouldn't want me to be a general in this war because my first thing would be reparations in blood. You know what I'm saying, along with the release of our political prisoners. So I'm on the George Jackson tip, you know. So, but definitely, you know, I mean, I don't even see how it's logical. In fact, I'm gonna go a step further and forgive me. I would say that the continent of Africa should be demanding reparations. And that demand for reparations should be the release and the return of Africans who were kidnapped and enslaved here in America. So I think we have the whole reparations thing, not just America in the diaspora as a whole. I think the whole concept of reparations is skewed because we are in the United States the most arrogant ex-slaves that you ever want to meet. You know what I'm saying? Why should we get reparations? I understand that, you know, that should be part of the process. But again, the continent of Africa, in my eyes, should be demanding reparations. They should be saying, listen, you know, we want these millions of Africans who were kidnapped, you know, we want to give them land over here. We want to run off some of these colonizers who have come and looted the land and took all the resources, so on and so forth. And we want to return it to their rightful owner, the children of the victims of chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm. I like and I appreciate much how Brother Kalonji like expanded the conversation, because I think that it does. Like, I am for reparations, but I agree and I so appreciate his analysis of how things need to be concluded, that just talking about reparations in terms of money is very narrow. One of the things that needs to be is that the decriminalization of Black resistance, right? Because we're talking about repair and harm. I do think that Africans enslaved in America and their descendants are entitled, but it's not just money. It's like he said, land, it's free college, it's different ways to repair the harm that starts with the release of our political prisoners, because they and their families and our communities have been harmed by their decades-long imprisonment. So that's why political prisoners should be a part of it, because if you're talking about repairing the harm that was done, you harmed our political prisoners, you harmed their families, you harmed their communities, and you harmed our movement. So let's start there. Just like other people have gotten reparations for the harm that was done. But I do think I think that so many people are really just not educated about things, and it's easy for people. And not that I'm a know-it-all, because I'm not. Because like I said, I appreciate Kalonji opened up my eyes to think about it like in another kind of way, like he expanded it. And I think that more of us need that. The problem is what Kalonji said about the people who are in front of these movements are not revolutionary. They don't present a more vast and open vision of what reparations could be, should be, and so it becomes narrow, just like the work of so-called activists and organizers who for decades have not included political prisoners in their work. I used to always say to people, and they get tired of hearing me, but I would say, you cannot call yourself a radical if you are not talking about political prisoners, because there's no country in the world that does not include the freedom, the release of their political prisoners in the platform of their work, in the demands of their work. But that happens here because we're not educated, because we're so busy trying to be like these Americans. We're so busy trying to get a piece of the pie instead of smashing the whole damn thing. And I love what Kalonji said about, he reminded me of Malcolm when he said it. He said, America is a cop city. Malcolm said, America means prisons. So it's the same thing. So we got to expand what it is that we're not just talking about, but struggling for. Because if they give people money, what will that mean? They took it back. When they gave 40 acres and a mule, they took it back. Right? So expand it and politicize people to the understanding of what it is that we really, really want. And I love the thing about Africa, right? Because they have raped, pillaged, and stole all the resources. The people of Africa are made free, are made poor, while the continent is the richest continent in the world.
Anybody else want to add to this conversation of the connection between reparations and political prisoners? All right.
I just want to add one thing. I think that whenever we talk about anything related to the attack on our self-determination, we always have to include political prisoners. So when we talk about reparations or we talk about police terrorism, we have to make sure that we engage our political prisoners. They should be written to, and we should build that relationship, because that's why it's very important for us to write about political prisoners. Because once that relationship starts to develop and it's further built, now when we on any platform and we speak on certain issues, now we can quote a political prisoner. Now we have them directly involved in that. So if it's a certain level of coverage, you might have a certain media outlet that's coming to report on a conference that's going on. Now in that reporting, you're going to say this political prisoner had this comment to say. So that political prisoner is being recognized in that historical content.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. Haki, I guess the next question is, I wanted to start off with you. What responsibility do we have, and why is it important to build a connection to political prisoners?
The key word responsibility, I feel like, goes with the simple word sacrifice. I mean, these individuals sacrificed their lives for us, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's our duty. It's it's an ancestral duty for us to return that favor, you know what I'm saying? For people who sacrificed their lives, spent countless years in prison, going through inhumane conditions and things of that nature, so we can walk around as proud new African Black men and women. We owe them, you know what I'm saying? I don't like to use that term too much as far as but we definitely owe them. So I feel like it's an ancestral duty and sacrifice with responsibility to build and connect with them. And we gotta, with all the, quote unquote, how America describes and criminalizes these individuals, I feel like it's our duty also to correct and change and control that narrative, because decades they've been criminalizing these individuals, and we know they are not criminals. They're locked up for their political beliefs. So I feel like it's your duty to understand, what are these ideas? What are these political beliefs that got these brothers and sisters incarcerated for these many years, in prisons across America? So I feel like it's an ancestral duty. It's just like, with Harriet Tubman and all these great individuals who came before us, they, the people that helped them felt like they had to sacrifice themselves in order to help them, because these people were leading them. So it's all about, learning about their struggles, their ideas, why they were incarcerated, why they were being attacked, why they was taking out our communities and things like that. You should feel like this is a duty for you to connect with them, to understand their struggles and things of that nature, man, because at the end of the day, we are them, they are us. You know what I'm saying? This is bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? This is a historical struggle of a people, that's been oppressed, attacked, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I just feel like we owe them, the responsibility and the sacrifice to connect and build with them. And most importantly, to free them. Because so many of them are, like earlier, y'all was talking about Joseph Bowen. This brother been in prison for 52 years. Imagine that. You know what I'm saying? Being in a place for 52 years. So, we got to do a better job, you know what I'm saying? And getting these brothers and sisters out of prison, because they're dying in prison. And when they do get out, many of them not living too long. So if we had more people getting involved and dedicating and sacrificing themselves to freeing these brothers and sisters, a lot of these brothers and sisters will come home much more quicker than what they're doing. So I just feel like it's an ancestral duty of sacrifice to build and connect and learn about these brothers and sisters and control the narrative that this criminal government has painted over these brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Brother Haki. I think that, it's so much easier for people to champion and celebrate and speak of the names of people who are ancestors. Like they can say, Harriet Tubman did a good thing, Nat Turner did a good thing. But in their lifetime, like, I'm retired now, but when I worked with high school students, I said they criminalized Harriet Tubman. A couple of 100 years later, they say she did a great thing. But when she was alive, they called her a criminal. They murdered Nat Turner. They called him a criminal and murdered him. So we have to make it make it so that we understand that it is right, like you said, Haki, and a responsibility to honor and fight for and advocate for the living and not just worship the dead, right? Like these are people that are alive in the living, in the flesh and blood now. They did the same kind of things as I'm not concerned about what people were charged with, because on those slave ships and those slave plantations, our ancestors killed their slave masters. They used machetes. They used poison. They fought in every way they could. But now we allow the state to determine how we should fight. There's a war waging on people of African descent. So people have a right to resist. And the state doesn't have the right to tell us how to resist. And so that's part of the educational process, is not just talking about those who have passed on, but those are who are among the living, and that they should not be there, because it is a violation of international law to even have our political prisoners in there, because we do have a right to defend ourselves and to resist. But they have criminalized that. This government, this criminal government, has criminalized people's resisting their criminal behavior. So I'm tired of those people that write books glorifying Harriet and Nat Turner and all of the people who fought back while ignoring those who are living for doing the same thing.
Right. And yeah, and I agree with what both the comrades talked about, man, because everything's about symbolism these days. You know what I'm saying? It's not about resistance. Even the verbiage that's being utilized, and Dequi, I know you said the word radical a few minutes ago. That word just makes me cringe, because of the fact that it's just like, look, we are revolutionaries. You know what I'm saying? That radical thing, and we talked about this yesterday. It's kind of like, it's acceptable. You know what I'm saying? To me, radical is my daughter deciding to dye her hair and put spikes in her hair. That's what I'm saying. That's radical. You know what I'm saying? That what they call it, rad. It's even, it's even, they could break it down and it can go any way. Either we fighting or we ain't fighting. You know what I'm saying? Either we rumbling or we not rumbling. And I think that we allow certain organizations to function and slither amongst us, and we don't say anything. You know what I mean? We're guilty of liberalism. We accept certain behavior. You know what I'm saying? And then we don't speak up at certain times because we don't want to be the unpopular person in the room. I've been unpopular my entire life. You understand what I'm saying? That's why I never put myself in a position where I can be kicked out of anything. You understand what I'm saying? I can't be fired nor hired. So, and I know that, and I'm saying that I respect structure. Let's understand that particular piece. So it's not just me saying that I'm radical. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that I'm clear that when we talk about resistance, we are going by our oppressor's rule of engagement. You understand what I'm saying? When we fight, if we're doing African martial arts, I'm not gonna, because you into jujitsu, I'm not gonna start fighting in a jujitsu style. You know what I'm saying? That's what you do. You understand what I'm saying? We get caught up. We have to dictate and determine our dance. And when we talk about our freedom fighting and our liberation, like Dequi said, yeah, we got to turn it up. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no, what about this? What about that? You mentioned Harriet Tubman. There was a movement, quote unquote movement, a hashtag movement a few years ago where folks were talking about taking statues down and taking Confederate flags down. They got the Harriet Tubman statue in the CIA quad right now. Ain't nobody said nothing about taking that down. There ain't even been a petition to go around to take down the Harriet Tubman joint. That's one of our most revered freedom fighters. Not women freedom fighters, but freedom fighters, period. And we allow that. So that tells me that if they want to, in another 100 or so years, they can have a picture. They can have a statue of Sekou, or a statue of Daruba, or a statue of Mutulu in there in the middle of their joint. And we're not gonna say anything because they'll paint it a certain way, and those that know better won't do a damn thing and to say nothing about it, man. So it's like, we're man, we like the Ruber said last night, huh?
We are bamboozled. So many, too many of us are bamboozled.
We love it. We like it like that. Because what's happening is what we don't want to talk about as well is right now the whole nonprofit social justice movement is trying to remix and alter what liberation and freedom fighting is all about. They're trying to dictate what's going on. They're trying to tell you what's Black revolution and what's not. You know what I'm saying? Certain groups, if you listen closely, they don't even use the word Africa. They don't talk about they know African. You know what I'm saying? Because when you say you're an African, that means that there's responsibility.
Yes.
That means there's accountability. So you just can't freestyle. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to say I'm a Marxist, I'm a Leninist, I'm a this, I'm a that, because of the fact that, you know, your culture is not included in it. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to knock the comrades. You know, we respect knowledge, we respect freedom fighters, so on and so forth. But you damn sure got to respect where we come from. I didn't come on this platform today. Oh, it's Ryan Napoli, and you know, I got to change my language because of the fact that I don't want to offend him. You know what the fuck his ancestors did? You know what I'm saying? He's quite clear, and that's why he invited a certain element of folks on here. It's not I coming to disrespect him. In fact, I applaud him because of the fact that he could have got a whole bunch of these folks with these pretty sounding words, you know, to come on here and talk all this theoretical, hypothetical bullshit. But they ain't gonna bust a Concord grape in the fruit fight. And that's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? They can tell you, I done had cats tell me about myself. Well, actually, you know what I'm saying? This is how arrogant these bastards are. But until we confront them, until we deal with them in a way that a Mutulu would have dealt with them, in a way that a Sekou would have dealt with them, in a way that a Daruba would have dealt with them, then we're gonna keep on moving in the same direction we're going in, and that's nowhere fast.
And I think that that's key about how we all suffer when there's no movement, because there is no accountability. So people can say and do anything and get away with it because they're, you know, when there's no movement, then that passes for. When there's no movement, events pass for the movement. When there's no movement, the intellectuals pass for revolutionaries because they, you know, because they write whatever it is that they write. So I think that is the key. In the absence of a movement, people are not held accountable for what they say and do, and they're not challenged on it, and they're not confronted with it. This non-profit industrial complex is just like they talk about freely how to influence movements. Like that's their mantra, and you can tell because you don't hear words like new African, you know. I mean, there's people who say they're Black, they don't want to be called African. I mean, we are just, it's like Sekou said, we need culture to understand who we are, that we are a people, and we don't understand that because there's millions of Black folks that think they're American. But you know, it's like Malcolm said, a cat has kittens in an oven that don't make them muffins, right?
But you know,
we want to be American. I don't want to be American. I'm not American. That was imposed on me. I have a passport that says U.S. citizen, but that shit was imposed on me because nobody asked my ancestors if that's what we wanted. And so the same way they impose that on us, they're imposing all this other stuff on us, the conditioning, the miseducation, the undereducating us. So we are just not just traumatized, we are wounded, and we are confused. So people have to get their minds right. And that's why we have political prisoners, because those people, particularly from those movements of the 60s and 70s, they was helped, the Black Panther Party, and you know, the Young Lords, all those organizations, they were helping people to get their minds right so that they change from hurting their community to serving their community. That's the work.
Without a doubt.
And let me just throw this little quick remix in there as well as what Kalonji was saying about the CIA building with Harriet Tubman. That $20 bill that they trying to impose on us with Harriet Tubman on that $20 bill is some serious remixing and indoctrinating as well, trying to put our ancestor on that American $20 bill. And you know, like, how can you be a proud, you know, new African Black man and woman supporting that type of remixing of history, trying to put our ancestors, damn well Harriet Tubman wanted to be on a $20 bill and her people not even free. And we still got people sitting in penitentiaries across America over 50 something plus years. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man, it's some serious, you know what I'm saying? What I call, what the youngins say is like clout chasing.
Right. Yeah. And it's safe.
First of all, new Africans were the economy, right? So it ain't really nothing new. I wish I had this book right in front of me. I have a book because before it became the $1 US that exists now, every state had its own currency on this land, every state. And so what was it? It was images of Black folks. So it's not new of them putting Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. We were on the money of all the states in this country before it became the US dollar and, the $5 bill, the $10 bill and all that. We were on it. So this is not new. We got to know that we were and are the economy of this country. So they like to appease people. They do this. It's like we fight for freedom. They give Juneteenth a holiday. We ain't need their permission or approval to recognize. People have been recognizing and commemorating Juneteenth ever since 1865, right? When the people, 1867, when the people found out about, when the people in Texas found out. But if you don't know when you've been spit on, it don't matter what else you think you know. And so they spit on us by giving us these little things to pacify us when they ain't got nothing to do with what Kalonji and what y'all are saying about what we are all saying about liberation, true liberation and self-determination and justice. Don't give me no damn carrots. I want the whole piece of land. And you don't need to hand it to me. I earned it, I worked for it, and I fought for it.
First of all, I want to shout to Brother Shep, who's in the comments. Happy that you're watching the show. It's an honor you're watching the show. And as y'all were saying, the level of whitewashing, or to use a fancier word, elite capture that is going on in the world today is no joke. Not to bring my professional life into it, but public defender, I've been a public defender for 20 years. And when I speak to my coworkers about political, you're talking about people who use Kalonji's word radical, who self-identify as radical. And I'm not saying this to be self-righteous or condescending. I'm saying this just as a fact of life. When you hear self-identified radicals who, are supposed to be the most left-wing attorneys in the country, you can't, they're not naming political prisoners beyond Mumia, if they're even naming Mumia. And the situation is getting worse. And I would say, and not only is it whitewashing, elite capture, but it's also a feature of COINTELPRO and its previous and subsequent iterations. And not only did they assassinate individuals, try to crush a movement, lock up, exile the revolutionaries that were part of that movement, but they also try to kill the consciousness. And that's some of these effects. And so that's why I say, I don't say this to be self-righteous. I don't say this to be condescending. I say that all of this is part of their plan of whitewashing, elite capture of COINTELPRO and its subsequent iterations. Anything that, one other question I wanted to ask before we close, and Frank got to some of this, is how can we support our political prisoners and help free them?
Yeah, I would say, like I said before, we should write to political prisoners, and we should be involved in community activities and use it to raise awareness about political prisoners. One of the things that we did, or I did on behalf of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, is I actually attended it was like a tenant meeting, monthly meeting. And I attended it one time, and I was allowed to speak. And this was in South Jamaica houses, to be specific. And I was allowed to speak, and I spoke about Sadiki and how he was from South Jamaica and how the Black Panthers organized. So I was reminding people of their history. right, in Queensbridge, you know, on behalf of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, I gave out some free vegan food because Sugar Ray, he does some incredible work in Queensbridge, and he allowed me to give out some food with him. So I did that in the spirit of political prisoners and reminded people of what people who made sacrifices did. And even as I went as far as one time I gave this brother a shovel to dig out snow. And I said, you know, with the Black Panther Party, we always was there for one another. Then I gave him a brochure of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition. So every opportunity I had to express the sacrifices of our political prisoners, I used that, you know, and I think that that's what we need to do. We need to have that in our everyday lives. And that has to be a part of us. Whenever we go on any family functions, you know, let's bring up political prisoners. Let's let people know who they are, because this is a war, and it's a war of ideas, and we have to remind ourselves that we're constantly engaged in that war.
I want to say, you want to let Dequi jump on. We're going to get down there, Dequi.
Okay, no, brother, you could go. I'll go after you.
I just want to say, first of all, you know, I'm going to say salute to Brother Frank. Because what I like about what you're talking about is just that we're talking about being practical, right? You know, you're not talking about a whole bunch of theory. You're not talking about a whole bunch of philosophical gestures and words and ideas and all that. You're like, look, this is simple things that we can do to advance. If we all just did just what you said you did right there, what you were doing, that would be a step further. If we can get the people just on that level. See, the thing is, we want our people to come in and become revolutionaries overnight. You know what I'm saying? We want to be critical of everybody, except of all the people except the ones that we need to be critical of. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of these folks, they're not going to the streets. They're not going to educate in these housing complexes and these projects. I could appreciate that because I come from the projects, right? So I have a certain type of style, a certain type of demeanor or swag that's not going to be accepted by the masses because I'm a reminder. And that's what we have to do. We have to be reminders of where we as a whole collectively come from. Unfortunately, we have these quote unquote academics with skewed politics. We have these nonprofits who have mixed politics. They just come with all kinds of bullshit. Pardon my English. You know what I'm saying? And it's not our reality. It's not our reality. When we talk about freedom fighters, we're coming up on Black August. This is the 44th year, I believe. Yeah, 44th year of resistance. You know what I'm saying? We talk about Black August, all of these different Dequi mentioned Juneteenth. You know, a number of our different quote unquote holidays and celebrations have been hijacked. I need to issue a warning because of the fact that I see y'all out there.
Mm-hmm.
Black August will not be hijacked.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It will not be hijacked. Now, a couple of y'all not skated by the hair in your chinny chin chin, but please believe we come in the spirit of folks like OG Shaka Thinning. You know what I'm saying? Who was one of my closest OGs. We come on the spirit of folks like OG Kamasi. You know what I'm saying? Who's been putting in his work for years. There are a number of different freedom fighters locked up in these gulags who are not on any political prisoner list. You know what I'm saying? So I have a problem. A lot of times folks talk about we got X amount of political prisoners. We have countless amounts of political prisoners. In fact, that's like putting a number on the number of enslaved Africans that came up out of West Africa. It's impossible. You understand what I'm saying? So with Black August, it is about resistance. Is it about political prisoners? It's about education. It's about training. It is a reflection. It is a reminder. And right after Black August, we commemorate the Attica Rebellion. You understand what I'm saying? So we keep that tradition going. And right after the Attica Rebellion, we commemorate the Black Panther Party. You understand what I'm saying? So we have at least 3 months of resistance coming up. And we have to be steadfast. So to answer your question, how do we promote or keep political prisoners in the forefront? When we're pouring libation, and we were talking about our ancestors, because we always talk about our ancestors, political prisoners should be next in line.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? We should talk about our ancestors, but we should talk about our political prisoners who in many cases are soon to be ancestors, right? And I need to send a message too to some of these political prisoner organizations, right? We respect structure and we respect protocol. Some of y'all had a problem that some of us wrote about Rochelle McGee, right? I'm just putting it out there. I don't give a fuck. You understand what I'm saying? There's no one has a trademark. No one has a damn you don't own the political prisoners. You know what I'm saying? These are our freedom fighters.
That's right.
I respect how y'all get down, but there's no attorney, there's no activist, and there's no group that's going to tell us that we cannot promote the liberation of our political prisoners. You out of your damn mind. I'm just saying that right now, and go talk to my elders. My elders are worse than me. So I'm just telling y'all now, because folks be like, well, did you speak to the elders? I did. You know what I'm saying? And please understand, I have grandchildren. So my level of not giving a fuck goes a little bit further. But a lot of times what happens is our movements are weak.
Yes.
Because they lack foundation. And there are people that want to be gatekeepers. You understand what I'm saying? There's people who want to be the first to report. Just like with Dr. Mutulu Shakur's death yesterday. I got the message early yesterday morning. And of course, I knew that if the family didn't report it, then I wasn't going to say jack shit. If his organization he's a part of didn't report it, I wasn't going to say jack shit. But some people got the message and they couldn't wait. They couldn't wait because they commodify our death and our pain.
Yep.
Our ancestors' blood, there's no monetary value.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, man, you get caught doing certain things, man, you're guilty of ancestral treason.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind being a target. I don't mind being unpopular. But please believe and please understand that, as the preacher man used to say, it's getting late in the evening. We here for a short term on this planet. And I'd be damned if I'm gonna sit back and allow some of you damn gatekeepers and Negro elitists. And that's not just in the academy, don't get it twisted. I'm talking about some of these cats that's flaunting around like they on some grassroots shit. I don't know what grassroots is these days because of the fact, again, the terminology has been blurred.
Right.
Anybody's a radical now. You're a black radical. That sounds like some cracker shit. Am I wrong? Like, what do you mean black radical? What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, as a black radical.
Sick.
Y'all forgive me.
Well,
I forgot where I was at.
Thank you, Kalonji. But I just want to add to what Frank was saying, right? People can write to, if you go to the Jericho Movement, you can write to a political prisoner and ask them for themselves, because they can speak very well for themselves. Yes. What you can do, how you can help. You can talk in your church, your mosque, your whatever groups you belong to. There's 1,000,001 ways. Everybody's not going to do the same thing, but everybody can do something. But if you don't know what to do, then ask. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing, because none of us knows everything. And we all have at some point not known. There was a time when I did not know political prisoners existed in this country. But once I found out, then that changed my life and that changed my trajectory. But ask them. They're very clear that they can tell you. And so as I close out, because I couldn't get the words out before about Mutulu, and I just pray that I can get the words out right now. We thank Mutulu. When I think of Mutulu, I think about Yalua Ferguson, yes, who always had a special bond with him, because when the pigs vamped down on that church in Detroit for the RNA convention, Mutulu laid himself on her body. They were shooting inside the church. Mutulu laid his body on top of Yalua Ferguson to save her from being shot.
At 15 years old.
Yes. So I think about that. I think about all the people who are carrying on acupuncture and doing that. I think about the thousands of lives that he transformed being in prison for decades, and the people who have come out and are doing work to serve their community instead of harming their communities like they were before they went in. And when I think about Mutulu in this in his passing, I think about Albert Noah Washington and Abdul Majid and Bashir Hamid and Kwesi Balagoon. I think about all those people who didn't get a chance to come, who died, were murdered, as Brother Kalonji said, because that's what they were, who were murdered behind the wall. So the fact that Mutulu was home with family, people could sing to him, rub his hand, rub his forehead, kiss him, talk to him, pray for him, and pray with him. That's a blessing. That's a real blessing, because our other brothers and sisters didn't have that opportunity. So, you know, but like Kalonji said, we got to be clear, that was murder, because it always is. So we just know that we carry on his work and we don't forget. If we want to honor Mutulu, we honor him by not just carrying on his work, and not in terms of just acupuncture, just the work of resistance. Because he used to say stiff resistance. I'm struggling and I'm juggling, right? Yeah. So carrying that on and supporting his comrades who are still inside. That's how we honor Mutulu. So thank you, Ryan, for giving me the opportunity, because just, I don't know, sometimes just saying it out loud makes me get emotional, right? Because it's one thing to know, but then like when I'm saying it out loud, it's like it makes it more real.
Definitely thank you, Ryan, for putting this together, man. You know, it's good to be with, you know, Haki and Frank, Dequi and yourself. Dequi was stressing me out in Houston a little while ago, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Her and Sekou, but you know, it's always love, man. I'm definitely grateful that that you had the wherewithal and the thought to bring some folks like us together, because you know, we are outcasts. You know, the freedom fighter is an outcasted individual. The revolutionary is outcasted. Don't get it twisted. You know, you see folks like Sekou out, you see folks like Ruba out, and so many others. You know, they're celebrities for a day to a lot of these people. They would use them, they would trot them around. You know, but they don't really care. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm just keeping it 100. And Dequi, you know better than me on that. You know what I'm saying? It's they with you when it's the fanfare time. They want to take the pictures and all that, but they ain't really checking to make sure you're good, though. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of these nonprofits and others, they make bank off the blood of our people, and it's unacceptable.
Thank you for saying that, Kalonji, and Dequi, thank you for your comments. And I want to shout out all y'all, and it's an honor to have you guys all on the show together. I've met Haki before. I know Dequi and Frank. It's an honor to meet you, Kalonji.
Me as well.
As I've stated off the air, Riot Started TV is the best, if not one of the best shows in all the land. Watch it. Black Power Media is an excellent channel. Haki also has a YouTube show. Check it out. It's under Haki's name, Haki Kweli Shakur, and of course, Brother Frank has a YouTube show which you all have to check out. Also, NEPPC podcast and YouTube show. Check it out. Thank you all for coming on the show. Is there anything anyone else wants to say or discuss before we close?
I just want to shout out Jalil in the chat. Another one of our freedom fighters, Jalil Muntaqin. You know what I'm saying? Who was another hero of mine who was locked up 49 years. I mean, I think he got locked up when I was 6 months old and was released right around my 50th birthday. So that's just me giving you an idea of how insane that is. From the time I was 6 months to 50, Jalil was locked up. So this is why it's important for us to fight to free our political prisoners. Rochelle McGee has been locked up before I was even thought of. And folks keep saying 60 years. He's actually been locked up close to 68 years because he was locked up 8 or 9 years prior to this particular joint right here. And for the record, he is not locked up because of the Marin County shooting incident. He was actually acquitted on that. So, you know, we have to look into these cases and get an understanding as to what is really going on. And we have to put pressure on these co-defendants. You understand what I'm saying? And we have to remind them that the question of the day should be, what about Rochelle?
That's
When
right.
talk about Asada taught me, what about Sadiki? You understand what I'm saying? So I just want to leave with that.
Thank you, brothers. Ryan, thank you so much. You know I love you and I appreciate you and all of your work, and you're really being there for the community beyond your platform. So thank you all for the work that you do. You know, we dare to struggle, so we will win, because as long as we keep at it and say the names of our political prisoners, like fight for them, do something for a political prisoner every day. That's how we internalize it and make it real. So it's not something we do, it's someone we are. So thank you, and thank you to all the people that you said are here on the platform listening and watching. Thank you to them as well.
Indeed.
Y'all have a great day and a good weekend. And be safe.
Y'all be safe out there. Hug Sekou for me.
I will. You
And
got
what's
to Kalonji, because he's on his way to Atlanta from Mutulu.
Okay.
So
Well, good. Well, definitely. That's what's up. Will you be safe?
Okay.
And lastly, what's the call?
Free them all.
Yeah.
Free them all.
Free them all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.